Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to Fallout 76 for our weekly visit to the Purveyor. Today we're going to burn through 1,000 Scrip, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit, do a little bit of melee, and do a little bit of ranged weapons, because this is my PC former exclusively guerrilla build, but now I'm switching back and forth to unarmed on this character, so why not roll for both types of weapons and get a little more variety? Remember, if you like videos like this and you want to see more, do go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, follow me on Twitter for updates. There's always a lot more to come on the channel. So as always, we'll roll the dice, see what Mama Mumbles has for us, talk about what makes each weapon good, bad, or otherwise. And yeah, enough chit-chat, let's get rolling. And our first roll of the day will be a Zealots explosive combat rifle with 250 damage resistance while reloading. So the other cool thing we get to do today is talk about some of the changes that are currently on the PTS that we should see live in the game sometime in July. One of those changes is going to be a major change to all of your different situational slayers, for lack of a better word, effects. Effects like Zealots and Mutant Slayers and Ghoul Slayers. Currently, they do an extra 30% damage to a specific enemy type. In the future, that's going to bump up to 50%. So they're going to be a little more useful, a little more valuable, maybe worth keeping around just a little more, at least for certain weapon types and for certain play styles. So this one here would be a significantly better weapon in July. The advantage here being that with Zealots, you do extra damage to Scorched. You now have Scorched in daily ops, you have Scorched Earth, you have other events where you fight Scorched. So having a weapon that does extra damage to them, well, that's not a bad thing. Exploding bullets, always a good thing, that's just a free damage boost all around. And 250 damage resistance while reloading. While there are diminishing returns on damage resistance, if there's ever a time to get every last bit of protection you can, it's when you're most vulnerable, which is going to be when you're reloading your weapon. So this is not a bad one. Would I prefer something like anti-armor or bloodied or junkies to Zealots? Yeah, sure. But overall, decently built set of effects here and things that can work reasonably well together. So not amazing, not terrible. Let's move along. And now we'll switch over to melee. We'll just alternate as we go here. And we've got an anti-armor Sickle, which reflects 50% of melee damage back while blocking and extra agility. So not in love with this one. The Sickle is not one of the most desirable weapons that you can get, and anti-armor on melee weapons does leave a bit to be desired. Typically, if you're running a melee build, you're going to be running Incisor, which is going to be ignoring a significant amount of your enemy's armor already. So you're taking off that chunk, and now you're just ignoring half of what's left with this, which it's not nothing, but it's also not a whole lot. So you're not getting a ton of mileage out of that effect. And with melee weapons, they usually are doing a pretty decent amount of damage. So again, how much are you really benefiting from that? Reflecting melee damage back while blocking. Blocking effects are pointless to me. I just don't see anybody realistically using that. And the amount of damage that comes from enemies is fairly low anyway, so that's not much of anything. Let's move along. Another ranged weapon here. We've got more exploding bullets. We've got a Hunter's 10mm submachine gun with exploding bullets and faster movement speed while aiming. So here again, Hunter's effect. It's going to go up to 50% in July. Unfortunately, Hunters just isn't really one that anybody's really going to get excited about. You don't have daily ops where you face a ton of animals. You don't have a lot of events where you face a ton of animals. Maybe, you could use this against the Scorched Beast Queen. She does count for that, but that's nothing major. I guess you could use it at Project Paradise, but overall, there's many better choices than that. Exploding bullets is always good. Faster movement speed while aiming doesn't hurt anybody. Unfortunately, it's just probably not a great primary effect, even with the damage buff that it's going to get, because the situation that it's used for is just not really all that useful. It's not one you're going to encounter all that often. So, yeah, this one, don't love it. Let's see what we've got next. And we're back to melee and another Sickle. Okay, and this one with yet another situational effect, and one that is probably even less useful than the last one. Exterminators, extra damage to mirelurks and bugs. This one will get a buff too. Unfortunately, weapons that target mirelurks and bugs are still pretty useless. So sadly, nothing real great out of this one. Extra power attack damage, well, that doesn't hurt. That certainly is a benefit. You can do some pretty serious damage with power attacks to begin with, but by boosting that up, that's even better. Extra endurance will raise up your HP a little bit, but overall doesn't really give you a ton of mileage. So this one, yeah, it's still also a Sickle, so gonna have to say this one's probably gonna go back to the Scrip bin. Just not in love with this. Come on, Mama Mumbles, what do you got for us now? Now this is a little better. All right, now we're talking. We got a Junkie's Flamer with VATS critical shots doing more damage and faster movement speed while aiming. So the Junkie's effect is going to continue to be very popular and powerful. You're going to get a 50% damage buff with 5 addictions. So that's great. That's good. VATS critical shots doing more damage on a Flamer. Can't say that's going to be particularly useful. This isn't really the kind of weapon that you're going to use in VATS. This is more of a hipfire type weapon. Maybe you'll aim down sights. You do get the faster movement speed while you're aiming with this, but you're also not really getting a huge benefit out of aiming down the sights. So I kind of feel like those 2nd and 3rd stars are sort of lost on this one, which is a shame. And it does give us a chance to briefly touch on legendary crafting that's coming in July. A lot of people were under the impression that it was going to be a legendary re-roll system where we could take a weapon like this and re-roll the 2nd and 3rd stars. It's not going to be like that. And I even started to think it might too, just from some of the commentary from developers that I saw. But yeah, it's not that. You got to re-roll a whole new one. So basically what you would do is take this weapon that is good but not great, put it to the side, get another Flamer that's not legendary, and roll 3 stars on that. And then you can keep rolling those stars until you get the ones you want. So you don't really have to give up the good stuff on here. I know a lot of people think that. You can just craft another one and re-roll the stars on that. So it's not perfect. It's not what everybody thought. But, you know, it is what it is. And we can take this opportunity to briefly discuss it. But yes, we've got a Junkie's Flamer with a 2nd and 3rd star that don't really make any sense on the weapon. Let's go ahead and keep moving along here. We're going to do another melee weapon and see what we get this time. Now we've got a Mutant Slayer Sledgehammer, also reflecting melee damage back while blocking with extra strength. So here again, Mutant Slayer's effect, going to get a buff in July. I think we get the point of all that at this point. Mutant Slayers is much more desirable than some of the other ones we had. You've got mutants, super mutants in daily ops. You've got events with super mutants. You've got popular farming locations with super mutants. So having a weapon that does 50% more damage to very commonly encountered enemies is a good thing. Reflecting melee damage back while blocking. Who cares? Nobody blocks in this game. It's just not a thing. Maybe if you had shields, people would do that, but it's just doesn't really fit here. And again, melee the damage from enemies is low, so it's not doing a whole lot. Extra strength helps us though. That's going to give us effectively a damage boost on any melee weapon. So that's not a bad thing to have. So overall, this weapon's kind of meh, but better to have something that's kind of meh than something that's total garbage. Let's keep going. And next up, we've got a Berserkers 44 pistol with VATS hit chance and 250 DR while reloading. So this one is an interesting one to talk about. We've got a couple of effects that are getting buffs here. You've got Berserker's effect, which is going to be improved. It's improved now on the PTS. It could use a little more work. I think the damage buff that it gets is a bit low considering how challenging it is to actually play as a Berserker with no armor. It should be at least as strong as Bloodied, in my opinion. But overall, I'm just happy that they removed the negative from it. So in July, no more negative to Berserkers. That's a good thing. 33% VATS hit chance, which I have been a big fan of as is getting a buff to 50%. So that's going to be even more effective. And 250 DR while reloading, that could be potentially useful here. The question is, how does it all work? So the Berserkers effect, we want to keep our damage resistance at 0, essentially. Then you get the maximum buff that you can get from that. Using the increased VATS hit chance, you get a much easier chance to hit enemy weak points, and boosting that to 50% means you don't have to get quite as up close and personal as you did before. So that's a really good thing. Now the question is, how does 250 DR while reloading work? It should work that when I'm reloading this weapon, my damage resistance goes up. Once it's reloaded, my damage resistance goes back down. So that DR boost should be gone by the time I fire the weapon, and it shouldn't hurt my damage. I don't know if that's how it's going to work in practice. So this might be an interesting one to test out. I'm not a huge fan of the 44 pistol, but if one were going for a Berserker's build and this weapon works as it's described, then this could be a really good choice, giving you really good protection when you're the most vulnerable and having a pair of primary and secondary effects that actually blend well together and give you some advantages. So this one's kind of interesting. We'll have to take a look at it again in the future after those changes go live. We've got 3 more to go here, and oh look, it's completely useless Stalker's hatchet. It's a real shame because it's got faster swing speed and extra strength, so our 2nd and 3rd stars are awesome, but the Stalker's effect is completely useless. It's 100% useless on melee weapons where you either have a 0% chance to hit or a 95% chance to hit. There's no boost. You're not getting anything out of this. So that's really, really bad that that effect still exists as it does with melee, and it still continues to even on the PTS. Hopefully they change that. What I would like to see with a weapon like this with Stalkers is change that effect completely. Make it a sneak attack multiplier. Give it something that gives you a legit chance for most enemies to be a guaranteed one-hit kill if you are in hidden status or not in combat with that enemy. It would force players to kind of slow down their stealth gameplay a little bit, think things through a little bit more, and really change play styles, which could be really interesting. But as it stands right now, this is completely pointless. The swing speed, the strength, they're awesome, but the Stalker's effect is useless. Maybe a mid-level player who just wants something for a little while could get a little bit of mileage out of this, because swing speed is really good on melee weapons. In my opinion, still, that is the most important effect you can get, because that just flat out boosts your DPS by 40%. You can't really ask for anything better than that. Extra strength gives you a little bit of a damage buff, so those two things are great. Stalker's effect just sucks. And now we've got a 2-shot Gatling gun with VATS critical shots doing more damage and extra perception. Here's another situation where we can talk about some changes that are coming up. Why might this weapon be better in the future version of the game? The 2-shot effect is remaining unchanged, at least as far as we know. It's still basically a 25% boost at the cost of accuracy. VATS critical shots doing more damage also remains unchanged. Perception is what it is. What's changing though is for heavy gunners, they usually use power armor. Now you're going to have legendary power armor. Most heavy gunners don't rely much on VATS because you don't put a lot of agility into those builds, and therefore you don't have much AP. Well, now you can have a whole unyielding set of power armor with maybe AP refresh and some other effects that maybe you could get a little more mileage out of a weapon like this and actually get it to do some pretty good work for you. So we'll have to see where that goes in the future. One left. What do we have? A Furious pole hook with faster swing speed and agility. So not a bad weapon. The pole hook is good. It's a solid weapon, especially if you mod it. You can do some pretty serious damage with it. Getting 40% faster swing speed on a slow swinging weapon is a good thing. Extra agility. I'd prefer to have extra strength for more damage, but a little extra agility for some more AP and a little bit more stealthiness. That doesn't hurt anybody. The furious effect on a weapon like this is kind of lost on it. You're not really getting a ton of mileage out of that simply because most enemies you hit with this are going to be dead in one shot. So you're not really going to stack damage with multiple hits on a target. Now, your really tanky enemies, your bosses, sure, you can get a little more out of that with it. But for most things that you're going to kill with this, you're not really going to get anything out of that effect. Even still, faster swing speed and agility, they're both pretty good. So certainly not a god roll pole hook by any stretch of the imagination, but one that might do a little bit of work for the right person. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to bring us to the end of today's visit to the Purveyor. Not one of the better trips, and honestly, we're kind of paying for it here. We had a few really good weeks in a row, and this week, not so much. Last week, not so much. So hopefully things improve. And we've got our friendly sign here to remind us, don't feed your baby to the bears. And I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. Be sure to come back next time. There's always a lot more to come. Till I see you again, I'm Fisty McRib. Have a good one, everybody.